This is Nailing the Apex. I'm Tim Haraney. It's the Brazil Grand Prix lead up. Not much to talk about today on this one, but do want to focus on the battle between Lewis Hamilton and Sergio Perez for P2 in the championship. Now, this is a close one, and Hamilton has actually been closing in on Perez over the last few races. I mean, if you remove the disqualification from the US Grand Prix, then they probably, math is correct, they would be even on points. So they would both be tied for the Drivers' Championship P2. At the moment, Hamilton 20 points behind Sergio Perez in the Drivers' Championship, so Lewis in P3, Sergio again in P2. And coming into a race weekend here where the Mercedes was actually very competitive at last season at the Brazil Grand Prix, with George Russell coming away with some pretty big results in the win, where Max Verstappen actually didn't move over to let his teammate get by and Sergio Perez so he could try and gain some more points on Charles Leclerc in the driver standings that season. Red Bull Racing has been trying to finish 1-2 in the Drivers' Championship for a very long time now. They've never done it in the history of the team. And so this is, I think, for them in a season like this with a car that's this dominant, it's extremely important for them to finish 1 and 2, considering the car that they had. Now, Max Verstappen was asked about this during media day on Thursday, and he shot back with a few things saying that, it shouldn't always, be on himself, to get the points for the team, which is true. He makes a pretty good point in that regards. I mean, if Sergio wasn't even driving this year, no one was driving the second car, more than likely Verstappen would have won the championship. He probably would have won the Constructors' Championship for them as well. And so when you look at the next few races coming up, extremely important for them to get Sergio Perez confident in the car, and so he can start eking out some better results. But Verstappen was confident in his teammates, saying that he was confident in Checo, that he could stay ahead because on average they have the better car, or the faster car, I believe is what he had said. And you know what? He's not wrong. So does that put more pressure on Sergio Perez? I mean, yeah, for sure. I think it does. But looking at his qualifying pace from Mexico Grand Prix, and then again looking at the body of work he put together at the US Grand Prix coming into that race, he'd been working fairly hard in the simulator, and that's something I talked about on the show quite a few times before in the past. And so for Sergio, it's extremely important for him to get off on the right foot in these weekends. And I think for him, it's the confidence thing. I think if he's able to build that confidence throughout the weekend, then you can kind of get those results. The issue with this particular weekend, obviously, it's a sprint race weekend. So for the driver, not a lot of time to build that confidence because you only have that one free practice, session. And, granted, Red Bull Racing, they will know how to optimize their car as best as possible. I think for Sergio, though, the directions that he's going in with setup is much different than what Max does with his car setup. And so for Sergio, it's using that time wisely to get the car coming closer to him so he can at least be competitive in these qualifying sessions that will set him up for a better race as well. And that is something that he did talk about at Mexico Grand Prix, is trying to basically get the setup where he feels confident, and it's not so much doing the same as what Verstappen is doing with his car, because they're two totally different driving styles at the end of the day. And with this particular car, it kind of seems to really like a pointy front end, and that's something that Max really likes. Has a really loose, light rear end, where Sergio Perez really likes to have a lot of understeer, not a lot of understeer, but likes to have some understeer into the car. I mean, if you look at a lot of the street circuits where Sergio is competitive, a lot of 90-degree corners as well, which can induce understeer in a race car as well. And for Max, that's not something that he really feels comfortable with. He is able to squeak out some good results like we have seen. I mean, if you go back to all the way to 2022 at the beginning of the season, car not really suiting him, more along the lines suiting Sergio. And again, at the beginning of this season, car kind of really suiting more Sergio. He was able to, get a little more out of the car, where, when it came down to the tires and learning the tire and figuring the tire out, Max was able to unlock what he needed to in terms of that driver setup for the race car. But on top of all of that, he was able to unlock another level of performance from the car plus himself at the same time. And so, I mean, for Sergio, going back and working in the simulator, I mean, very important for him to get those sessions under his belt. But for the rest of this weekend, could be interesting. I'm interested to see what Mercedes can do. I mean, again, when they brought that new floor to the car, brought it to the U.S. Grand Prix. I mean, again, obviously they got disqualified, but that being said, does look like they clawed back quite a bit of performance to Red Bull and to Max Verstappen, especially in qualifying. They look really strong at the US GP. Not as much in Mexico, but then once the race started, that car really, came to life for their drivers as well. On the show today, we've got Daniel Ricciardo, and I sat down to do this interview with Daniel on the Thursday leading into the Mexico Grand Prix. It was actually an interview that I was going to do in Vegas. AlphaTauri was nice enough to actually move it up. And so I had received some messages from them asking if we could do it on the Thursday in Mexico. And yeah, for sure, we were able to lock that in. It was a great chat that we had. Talked about, a lot of stuff, his hand, what did he do while he was injured? We talked about the Buffalo Bills, talked about his relationship, friendship with Josh Allen, the quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, and talked about some racing as well. So it was a great interview. I had a lot of fun doing it. Big thanks to AlphaTauri for putting that together for us. Really appreciate it. And yeah, appreciate Daniel Ricciardo's time as well. Hope you enjoy it. Daniel, thanks very much for taking the time to do this. Really appreciate you doing this for us. How you been?
I've been all right. I've been well. It depends. If we're talking over the course of the last couple months, I've been, recovering, I guess. But in the space of the last few days, yeah, I've been good. Just back racing, so I'm happy. I'm really happy, actually.
So how was your recovery? I think you ended up seeing the same doctor as Lance did, right?
Yeah. So that was, it was good. It took longer than we kind of hoped or thought because, they say the wrist is worse than the hand to break. There's a lot more going on. So when they saw it was just a broken hand, they were like, okay, surgery and we should be okay. But yeah, once we got to Spain and they took some more scans, he's like, okay, the break is complex. It's quite a bad one, spiral fracture or whatever it's called. I don't know. So basically the steering wheel got me real good.
Yeah.
And it made me feel a bit better hearing that because I was in a lot of pain and I was like, man, this shouldn't hurt this much.
Yeah.
So it made me feel a little better about being a wuss. And then it just took time. So Yeah, I'm certainly no MotoGP rider either. Like, I don't know how they are not human.
Yeah,
like,
those guys go through some serious injuries, though, right?
They're not human. It's not possible.
No.
It's really not.
I think Mark Marquez has had a couple really good ones. We have some fan questions I'm going to mix in with our chat here. At Fiona asks, best or worst thing about being forced to take a break because of the injury? So what's the best and what's the worst?
The best.
Sleeping?
Yeah. I don't know, but I mean, you're sleeping in pain. Like it.
Oh yeah, okay.
It hurts like hell because I never had surgery, so I thought maybe once they've done the surgery, maybe like the pain will be a lot less. Nah, still sucked. So the honestly, there wasn't much good. It was just, I mean, the best thing is each day there is progress. So every day that passes, you're like one step closer to being better. But yeah, the worst thing was like missing the racing, but missing also the training. Like I'd spent my whole summer break training. I took like one day off and I was just in, honestly, what felt, at least for me, a little bit of a beast mode, and I was just loving it and going hard and just enjoying all of it. So when I obviously had to then miss a lot of days training, that it was hard not to feel like it was a setback. I didn't allow it to feel like a setback, but yeah, that was where I was like, I felt like I got big and strong, and some of that slowly went away.
Well, you'll build it back up. You'll get back there. You'll get back there. Right? I saw you were at the Bills game in the UK.
Yeah.
How do you think the Bills are going to do this year?
Oh, man. Firstly, I don't know if the Bills Mafia like me so much because my record of live games is 0-2 at the moment.
Well, okay, so every time you're there, they're always losing.
But I'm not superstitious, and if you are, deal with it, all right? But yeah, it's tough, because it's, on paper, they're awesome, and they have, like their game against the Dolphins that's as good as it gets, it was, at least from my understanding, that was pretty awesome. So they can do it, but they have obviously, they're not the only team, but they've obviously gone through the injury scenario. A lot of big names have unfortunately got hit with injuries, and look, they still have a good enough roster, I believe, to go very far. I mean, I don't know when this is going to air, but they've got the Buccaneers in about 2.5 hours, so at home. So another win, that'll set them up at 5-3, I think, and we'll be right.
So if they get to the Super Bowl, are you gonna go?
Yeah.
Wait,
Yeah.
you're 0-2.
Yeah.
So you're still gonna go?
As I said, F superstitions. The others can be superstitious. I ain't about it. I ain't missing it. And let's be real, they ain't losing because I'm there. Come on, guys, harden up.
So
I'll be there. I'll be at Allegiant if they make it.
How did you and Josh Allen become mates?
I think it was love at first sight. So it was kind of a combination of many things. He was getting into F1, we met, and I was getting into NFL. So it was kind of, we were both discovering, I mean, we obviously knew about each other's sports, but like really getting into them at the same time. So kind of just chatting to him a bit about it. I love sports. Like I love spending time with other athletes because I love hearing, what it's all about. And then his agent and my agent are pretty much best friends. So there was just like this whole little circle that was close. And then he's also just, we just kind of, we're in many ways very similar. I think we just love what we do. We're, for the most part, pretty easygoing. So we just kind of got on really easily. And it's kind of nice talking to someone from a very different sport.
For sure.
About sport.
Yeah.
And it's funny how much you can relate to.
Yeah, both competitors.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so you...
It's cool. Yeah, I love picking his brain. And it's cool. He's a big cutie. I adore him.
Talk about some racing a bit, and then we'll move on and do some other stuff. But the package looks like it's getting closer to battling for like P10 points. Being out of the car since Zandvoort, and then coming
pretty
back
much
in
forever.
but like the car has gone through a bit of a change or iteration. Does it feel different when you get back in, or is it easy for you to get back up to speed?
It felt relatively easy getting up to speed in terms of, I don't want to say easy in a like cocky way, but like FP1 in Austin, like my first lap, I was on pace with like the cars around me, you know, like the teams we're fighting, the Haas's and the Alphas and that. So yeah, it didn't take me long to really shake off the cobwebs. And I think that's been even when I drove the car the very first time in Budapest, the first lap I did, I felt quite comfortable in it. So in terms of the car itself and the feeling and the feedback I get from it, I'm actually, pretty in tune with it. It's now just, we make updates and progress, but, a lot of other teams do so as well. So it's like, it's all relative. The car does feel a bit better, but it's only as good as the position says. So we're still trying to crack a few more Q3s.
All right, this question's a good question. And I think this person's going to end up taking my job one day. But at Taylor Ray asks, all in caps, welcome back, Danny Rick.
What a do, baby.
The USGP was a little bit rough, but it was great seeing you back in the car. What did you learn in Austin that you can take into Mexico this weekend?
It was a shame because on paper it was like it looked rough, you know, and I think especially Sunday.
Oh, but you had to pace like all weekend though. Actually, you had pretty good pace all weekend.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like it's easy to kind of look at the Sunday result and be like, oh, he was nowhere. But we had a failure on the car about 3 laps after the pit stop. So pretty much from lap 27 or something, we were honestly out of the race. We lost so much downforce from the issue.
Hit something with the gun, or
no? It was actually just a failure. A part broke, and we thought it was maybe contact during the race with Stroll or something, but it wasn't. So that we were actually doing all right up until that point. I think our strategy maybe wasn't great, but in terms of like our pace, and that was good. And Friday I was a bit off the pace in qualifying, but then the Saturday qualifying I found that, and then put the car P11. So it was all honestly going pretty well for like my first weekend back, but Sunday how it ended, it just made me like, I just wish the race could have been better, and we just obviously got a bit unlucky. But it is what it is. There's also things I would have loved to have done a bit better, but I put my hand up and saying there was maybe a little bit of race rust, and it's all gone now. I'm polished. I'm clean.
I was gonna say, hey, you look pretty. I was there. You look pretty good. You look pretty good.
Okay, but
you're pretty good, DR.
I have high standards.
I get that. How difficult is it with these the sprint weekends? You only get that one FP1 session, so you're only getting like 60 minutes to really optimize the car, and then you got to go straight into qualifying. Like it is. Would you guys want more like free practice sessions before getting into that quali for these sprint weekends?
It's really with my, let's say, inexperience with this car, it's really car setup, which a sprint weekend definitely hurts, because, you get 60 minutes, and say Austin for me was just kind of, getting back up to speed. And then I knew I wanted to make some changes, and we did for qualifying, but you're never going to make massive changes because, you don't want to lose yourself. And that's it. You fix them for the weekend. So I don't mind the sprint weekend in terms of 60 minutes and then going into quali. Like, I like the pressure that puts on us. So from a driving point of view, I don't mind it, but from optimizing the setup and then obviously getting a car that I really feel like I'm 100% happy with, that's where the sprint hurts. And I would love that we could change a car on Saturday, especially Saturday's its own day. They should open a park for May up for Saturday, at least some things. So I think there's maybe some rules they could become a bit more flexible on, but it's really car setup, which the sprint hurts us with, unless you're, say, Max at the moment, who's so in tune with the car and knows everything and obviously knows the team so well, you can probably still get into quali with a good setup. But for us, it's a bit more hit and miss.
This one's from Sarah Flan, and she asks, it's about the Red Bull program, actually, that you were a part of. She says it's such a robust junior program within Red Bull that identified and nurtured so many drivers, such as yourself. F1 and beyond, are there any tips you got while in the Red Bull program that you still carry through to today?
Yeah, I want to say tough love. Tough love.
Isn't that like racing in general, though?
Yeah, but it was good for me. And I even, it's funny, like I'm probably a bit like that. I have a nephew and a niece, and I feel like I give them a bit of tough love as well. So it's just, I was very like happy-go-lucky, growing up, and I felt like I was always competitive, but I kind of needed someone at times to like kick me up the butt and just get that little bit of like dog out of me and that little bit of fire. And for me, like the Red Bull program really kind of nurtured that well, or however you say, like it found a way to get it out of me. And you have some tough conversations, and sometimes, the picking up a phone call from Helmut Marko is not always pleasant, but kind of made me realize how important it was. And I think, it kind of made me become a bit more of an adult a little sooner. So I think it worked well on me.
Probably makes it dig deeper too, right? Like, that it's not going to last
for real.
forever. Yeah, and it's like it can be taken away from you real quick. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it makes you appreciate it. I think that's such a true. Let's say, that's very true. So a little bit of tough love, I think, doesn't go astray. That's what I'll leave it at that.
We only have a few minutes left. I'm getting the wrap it up sign. So I'll ask you one more question from a fan. It's at Jenny Submarines, and they ask, what is your favorite racing memory of your career? Ooh. Obviously, you have more of a career to go, but like up till now.
I mean, I'm gonna go back pre F1 because most of those have been televised, like wins and stuff. But it's, I came up with Valtteri. So Valtteri Bottas, we were racing each other pretty much since when I moved to Europe. And there was a weekend in Silverstone in Formula Renault. We were 18 or something years old, and he was like dominating the whole weekend. And then we had 2 races on those weekends, and race 2 I kind of just like stalked him the whole race, and it was like I was so surprised to still be on his gearbox with a few laps to go, and started putting pressure on him. And then basically I made a move on the last lap and won the race. And it was a race that taught me that you don't necessarily have to be the quickest guy on a weekend to win a race. There is such thing as pressure. There is such thing as just that grit and that hunger, and like it was kind of like a bit of a never give up attitude. And that was really cool to pull off that win on that weekend, and that was one that I enjoyed a lot. So that was the 10th of June 2008. Yep, I remember it well. I'm weird with dates.
Nothing wrong with that. DR, thanks very much for taking the time to do this. Really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Cheers.
Big thanks to AlphaTauri for setting all of that up again. Really appreciate it. And thanks again to Daniel Ricciardo for his time as well. It was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed that. I've got to interview Daniel quite a bit over the past few years, and interviewed him. I've actually interviewed him a lot this particular season as well. And he never disappoints. Always gives a great interview. I sat down with SDPN's very own Jesse Blake, and Jesse and I played video games. For me, we played Formula One 2022, I believe it was. Yes, it was 2022, F1 2022 on the PlayStation 5. For this particular race, so I've never done this before. I'm just going to cut to I'm just going to cut to it here. I never played the F1 video game. I played a version of an F1 video game back in 2000, I think it was. So that would have been on the regular PlayStation, if I'm not wrong on that one. And then I played Gran Turismo. I think it was the second one. I played that one in 2001. And those are the only racing games that I've ever played. So I have no idea what I was getting myself into. So I show up at the SDPN studios, and I thought I was on Jesse Blake Sports Report. That's what I thought I was getting myself into, but I ended up getting myself into us playing video games. So really hope you enjoy it. That's going to come out on SDPN's YouTube channel on Friday, and it's Jesse versus, here's a clip. I already crashed out. Oh, yeah. I ran into the back of one of the Williams.
Restarting the session. Let's get you back onto the track. Yeah, those starts on the street.
How many laps do we have of this?
5.
Oh, dude, I'm not going to make it.
And so you can watch that full thing Friday morning on the SDPN YouTube channel. Big thanks to Jesse for having me on. It was a lot of fun. We're going to try and do it again when I get back from the Vegas Grand Prix, this time with a steering wheel. We're going to try and use a steering wheel for for it to see if that makes a difference, which I think it will. I think you also need the pedals. I think you need the full sim to really get the most out of the F1 video game, because it does actually, I don't want to say it seems realistic, but actually the car characteristics, do seem like it could be a bit of a race car. It could feel like a bit of a race car when you're driving it on a sim, but I think you need like that, whatever the steering wheel, the fan tech, I think is the big time steering wheel. I think you need that. I think you need the racing pedals. I think you need the seat. I think you need the seat that's got a bit of movement in it as well, so you can kind of feel, you can feel a bit of the car itself. We're going to be back on Sunday with a post Brazil Grand Prix. Jesse's actually going to be joining me for that one, so really looking forward to that. Thanks very much, everyone, for watching and listening. Nailing the Apex. If you want more Nailing the Apex, you can get it wherever you get your podcasts. Please head on over to Spotify. Give us a 5-star rating and a follow. Same goes with Apple Podcasts as well. If you write a review, it really helps us grow the show. You can also watch past episodes of Nailing the Apex over on YouTube, and we'll talk to y'all in a few days' time.